Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the show today. Folks, I am excited because I have on the line with me R. Michael Anderson, who has been speaking professionally for 9 years. The content he speaks on is, listen to this, folks, developing authentic happiness in leaders. I really like that. Now, Michael speaks in the U.S. and internationally. He is based out of California, and he's written a book with an awesome title, and that is The Experiment. I love that. Well, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here.
Great to have you here, Michael. Tell us about your speaking business. What are you teaching people?
Well, like you mentioned, what I say is I develop authentic happiness in leaders. And I say I do that, and people say, well, how did you get into that? I said, well, I teach a lot about happiness because I know a lot about unhappiness. I started out as a software entrepreneur, and I've always been a good achiever. So I played semi-pro basketball. I had success in business. I used to party at the Playboy Mansion. But although everything looked good externally, I just had a really troubled inner life where I was just so hard on myself. I would always beat myself up, and no matter what I would achieve, I just found that I was actually getting less happy, less joy in my life. And then I found what I believe is the best place on earth to get happy, and that's the University of Santa Monica. And I earned a master's in spiritual psychology. And it was so transformative for me personally that I knew so many of my other competitive-driven friends were going through the same thing, that I sold off my software company and I founded the Executive Joy Institute. And I'm an author and a speaker helping people go through the same transformation I've been through. That's
awesome. So spiritual psychology, is that correct?
Yeah, it's sort of like witchcraft.
Oh, it is not.
No, it's not.
Well, tell us about it. That's, you're the first person I've ever heard say that. And the happiness factor is huge because there's a lot of unhappiness in this world. So tell us about the spiritual psychology first.
Absolutely. And so when I say spiritual, again, it has nothing to do with religion. It's the psychology of love and compassion. And the spiritual comes from the point where it takes the assumption that we're all connected and that we're all pure loving beings. And if we have behaviors that aren't loving, like if we start beating ourselves up or we get jealous or angry or whatever it is, first of all, that's okay because we're human. We all go through that. And the second thing is that's a sign that there's a psychological unresolved issue. So we learn psychoanalysis techniques to heal those unresolved issues. And when we do, we're more in alignment with our true authentic self. If you believe we have a soul, we're more in line with our soul. And it's just a much more beautiful way to go through life with that relationship with ourself.
So when you went to college for this, what was the trigger did you just kind of one day went, this is what I've been looking for?
I wish, man. I wish, Andy. My low point, I had the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, I say, all visit me at the same time. So I was going through a divorce. I had a business partner assault me in my own office.
Wow.
And that led to restraining orders, lawsuits, all this other stuff. And then alcohol and hard drugs all came into my life at the same time. And sometimes it takes that for us to make a hard turn in our life. And I joke when I'm on stage, I go, my job is to help you get happier without having to go through a divorce, business lawsuit, and drugs and alcohol. So,
that's pretty common too. It really is.
It unfortunately is. And I find as leaders, oftentimes we give so much to other people, yet we have such a chaotic inner life. And that's really my job, is to find that the people that create so much value and so much awesomeness in this world is to help us own some of our own, I hate to use the catchphrase, own our own awesomeness, but really we do such great things, yet we oftentimes don't step into that power and that compassion for ourselves.
What have you found when people, if they're doing their work and they're highly successful, be it financially or they feel they're doing whatever they need to do correctly or whatever, why are they unhappy, do you think?
Well, I'll throw out some really deep things that we can these are obviously really deep issues. A lot of it comes from that we are trying to prove our self-worth through our achievements. And for whatever reason, well, it's because our parents oftentimes, they want the best for us, but they do what's called conditional parenting, where it looks like they withhold love when we're not quote unquote good. And then when we do things well, they say, oh, well, I love you so much. You're so smart. You've come in first in this race. You've got an A plus. I love you. I love you. So we link love with material achievements. And then we get this thing where we're always chasing that type of love. But then we also set ourselves in this mode where we're never truly worthy of that. So even when it's almost like we're addicted to chasing, and it's a place where you're in a race where you're never gonna truly win.
How do we put ourselves in that mode? What happens there?
Well, what's interesting is that when really high level people, very, very successful people are really open with me. When I do a little bit of one-on-one work, I don't really do a lot of that, but when I do some of that, or when we do some of these really deep workshops with YPO, Vistage, EO, groups like that, when we really get raw, almost everybody who's very, very successful deep down is scared because they think they're a fraud. And you wouldn't believe it. These people running billion-dollar-a-year companies, They really have fear that people are going to that their kids or their wife or their coworkers or their investors or their management team or their executive team are somehow going to quote unquote see through them and realize that they're just hanging on and just trying to get it to the next day because they're in a place where they just feel like they don't have control, and there's so much pressure on them that it really creates a sense of fear. Yet they've really built up everything around them to really show that this happy face to the rest of the world.
So how do you help them see past that they're not a fraud or whatever it is that you do? How do you help them there?
Well, there's the easiest thing to do, and it's something all the listeners can do at home, and it's great. I call it the Effect Journal, and this is just a really quick tool and a tip. Because what happened is I was running literally 2 software companies. I would work 12, 14-hour days and then get home, and I would be exhausted and after this long day, I was thinking, man, did I even get anything done? Well, what I did is I started at the end of the day, I would write down all the things that I positively affected. That's affect with an A. So anything that I did well. And once I started reflecting on the day and I made this list, I realized how much awesomeness I brought into this world, whether it's with a customer, with an employee. I negotiated this new deal with a vendor. I helped out a relative, a friend. I'm a very giving guy, but I would also often gloss over that. And then when I would just literally write it out, and then I would keep in a journal, and then I would look day after day, all these good things that I did. It really gave me more confidence. It really helped me start owning my own power, and it really put me into a different state of mind.
That is a terrific idea, but one has to develop the habit to do that at the end of the day.
Well, it's funny you bring up habit, because you're exactly right. Because if you boil everything down to psychology, some people call them patterns, but in a way they're habits. So, my habit had been getting down on myself and just focusing on the negatives. And you're exactly right, Andy, that what you're doing, and if you do that, you're strengthening the muscles of confidence. You're strengthening, and then when you start doing this, you have less anxiety, less stress, because you realize how much power you have. So you don't stress about things because you know that you have the capability to pretty easily overcome them.
What a great point. Now, you had said earlier that here's people running billion-dollar companies, but yet they feel like frauds. Was that one of the techniques you gave them, and how did that help them?
It did, and it's interesting because oftentimes I do when I do a lot of keynotes. I also do retreats and one-day workshops. And what I do is I have them stand in front of their peers, make eye contact, and stand with an open stance, like their palms out, and say, for example, I am a powerful business person. And you'd be surprised how many people say that they just want to break into tears because they're running these $100 million, literally $1 billion a year businesses, and they can't even own that. And
wow.
So just by starting to do that and have compassion with themselves and start to do exercises like that, they can really come a long way in a short period of time.
I'd love to go to one of your seminars. Your book, The Experiment, I love that title. Just that makes me want to open it up and say, what is that?
Good, it's doing its job.
So what is it about? Or can you divulge that?
No, I can, absolutely. And it's built around this concept that sometimes we know what to do in life, but we sort of we don't do it. And whether I have to lose weight or I have to spend more time with my kids, whether I want to run a marathon, whether I want to start that new business, sometimes we know really what we quote unquote should do, yet we don't do it. And it is and what I do is, when you want to make a life change, I say, instead of analyzing it to death, just call it an experiment. And I'll give you a really quick story about this. So a friend of mine, Nancy, called me up, and Nancy was crying. I said, Nancy, why are you crying? She goes, well, I just went to the doctor and I'm gluten intolerant. That means I can't eat wheat. I said, well, that stinks, but why are you crying? And she goes, well, I eat bagels for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for dinner. I have to change every meal I have to eat for the rest of my life. I said, well, hold on, Nancy, let's take a step back. You don't really have to change every meal you're going to eat for the rest of your life. She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, can you change the next 3 meals? For the next 24 hours, can we do an experiment? And then you stay away from wheat the next 3 meals. And so she did it. We talked in a day later, and she's like, it wasn't that hard. I found something for this, something for that. I need to find something better for a snack, but that really wasn't very hard. So then we did a 5-day experiment of the same thing, staying away from wheat. And then we caught back up, and now she's good for the rest of her life. So you can see how much more intimidating it is to change every meal you're going to eat for the rest of your life, rather than just do an experiment in the next day, because it's a lot easier to change every meal you eat for the next 3 days.
That's fabulous. My mother, who is now 84, about 15, 16 years ago, became gluten intolerant suddenly. And she just made the switch once she found out she couldn't eat it. And I'm deeply convinced that every adversity has a powerful positive outcome normally. And with hers is her weight has been, not that it was out of control, but she wasn't particularly heavy, but she is thin and healthy. Because when you get rid of gluten, you can't eat bread and certain things. And her weight is very under control, and she squats down on the floor to pick something up and comes right back up. I've seen 40-year-old people that have to grab the countertop to pull themselves up.
That's great. And I like what you said, that within every adversity, there's that quote unquote silver lining, and it's up to us to really identify that and embrace that.
It is, and it's really hard to know that there's something positive that's going to come out of it, because when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see that.
I hear you.
Do you have any thoughts, techniques on helping people with something like that when they're in the middle of an adversity, how to hang on and look forward?
I do, because as entrepreneurs and business people, we take a lot of risks, and because we are risk takers, I really work with people to let go of this. Hey, we're going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. You're a risk taker. That means you're going to lose probably more than other people, but it doesn't matter how many times you lose. It matters how many times you win. And then I bring up, there's a guy named Joseph Campbell who studied every major religion, and he found out that there's this story arc, which now we see in every Hollywood film. It's called the hero's journey. And he taught us that that all heroes go through a down period, and it's part of the human journey. And it really, and I want everybody to keep in mind, like, look, we're humans. So when we're at our despair, when we're at our low point, that's what builds our character. If we had this storybook life where nothing bad ever happens to us, we'd be wimps. We wouldn't have this character. We wouldn't have this strength. We wouldn't have this willpower.
True.
And so it's like that. What are they? Through fire, steel is forged. And so when you are going through that despair, that downtime, just think of it like, hey, this is your hero's journey. This is let this define you as a positive. Don't let this define you as a negative, and really set the intention to come out of this as that superhero.
Well, that is great information, Michael. Do you have anything on your website that people can get to, learn about that? Because not everybody in the world is going to be able to see you speak, and those that can't make it, what can they get from you?
Yeah, I have a download of my couple chapters of my book online. Just go to my website, executivejoy.com. And I'll tell you, if anybody sends me a personal email, I will send them a gift back. It'll be random, and I'll send them a personal note back. But if anybody, I love hearing from people. So if you send it to michael@executivejoy.com, that's michael@executivejoy.com. I'll look into my archives, and I got some recordings, I got some video courses, I got all sorts of cool stuff. And just tell me what's going. You can just say hi, or you can tell me what's going on, or what you liked or didn't like, or something in your life, and I'll send you a note back with a little gift.
Well, I appreciate that for the listeners, and also I want to acknowledge. I know it may not seem like it to you, but the courage to admit that, like you did at first, that you had, the trouble with divorce, drugs, and alcohol, because that can happen, and it happens to a lot of people, and it's not something you just talk about. So, kudos to you.
Well, thank you. It's great to get feedback to help other people through that too.
It is. Well, Michael, thank you for joining us and sharing with us your information. That was really, really good stuff to know.
Hey, my pleasure, Andy. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.